The station was cold in the way that only old bones could be cold, quiet, humming faintly, its systems running on borrowed time. Orbiting the edge of a dead star's gravity well, the orbital relic hung like a silver scar against the dark. Above it, the blackness of the Lyran void swallowed all sound, all light, all history. Nellie blinked through her helmet visor, scanning the derelict shell ahead. Her shuttle had docked without issue, but her nerves weren't fooled. Places like this had ghosts. Not literal ones. Just the kind made of regret and echo and the things people once said before dying. She stepped into the docking collar, magnetic boots clinking softly. Each breath hissed through her filter. Her suit registered breathable air, low radiation, minimal decay. Unusual. The station was old, pre-collapse era. These things usually crumbled into silence long before reclamation got there. But this one? It pulsed with faint life. Echo team, she whispered into her comm, though she knew no one was on the other end. Begin solo entry into orbital unit 042H. No response, of course. She was alone. As usual. The corridor beyond the collar opened into a service chamber. Old emergency lights flickered along the walls. NAV runes etched into the panels glowed faintly, directing personnel long dead to command, engineering, life support. Everything felt still. Not dead. Just waiting. Nellie moved cautiously. Her gloved fingers brushed against the wall. Dust clung to her touch. Dust made of decades. "What are you hiding?" she murmured, half to herself, half to the relic. It wasn't long before she reached the heart of the station, Central Command. The door hissed open slowly, scraping against its own warped frame. And there he was. At first, she thought he was a statue. The lighting played tricks, casting long shadows, reflecting off armor dulled by age and battle. He stood facing the far end of the chamber, back partially turned to her. Sword drawn. Frozen mid-motion. But it was no sculpture. His chest rose and fell, just barely. Alive. Nellie froze. A man should not be alive here. She took a tentative step forward. Her scanner hummed. The ambient systems were still drawing low power. Nothing suggested cryogenics. No stasis field. No preservation chamber. He was simply standing. And then, he spoke. "They're flanking the southern corridor. We hold the breach. No fallback. Not until the signal comes." His voice was hoarse, cracked like a dry leaf in wind. Nellie's skin chilled beneath her suit. The words were practiced. Familiar. As if repeated countless times to himself. "Sir," she said softly. "Do you hear me?" His head didn't move, but his fingers tightened on the hilt of his blade. "Who's there?" "I'm not a threat," she said carefully. "My name is Nellie. I'm with the Intersystem Reclamation Initiative. I'm not military." A pause. Then, barely audible, "No one left in the military." He turned. And his eyes met hers. Not glassy. Not empty. Alive. Aware. But tired. So tired. "Nellie," he repeated, tasting the name like a word from another language. "Why are you here?" "We're cataloging remnants of the war," she explained, voice soft. "Recording history before it's lost to decay. You're 2 centuries too late." She nodded. "I know." He studied her. Not hostile. Just unsure. Wary, like an animal too long alone. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said again. "I didn't know anyone was still aboard." He looked down at his hands. They shook faintly. Like they weren't his anymore. "What year is it?" 386 PE. He inhaled sharply. "How long?" "You've been declared missing for 213 years. His eyes fluttered shut. The sword lowered. Just slightly. They never came. Who? Command. Reinforcements. Anyone. She took a cautious step closer. He didn't move. What's your name? Kale. Kale Valen. Lieutenant of the 6th Guard. Eastern Orbital Command. Naley nodded slowly. The name matched the one in the station manifest. One of 3 officers unaccounted for. You were the last one. He didn't answer right away. They died one by one, he said finally. Some in battle. Some from wounds. Others gave up. But I had orders. To hold position. Until relieved. He laughed bitterly. I thought it would be hours. Maybe a day. Not this. Naley moved closer. She could see the lines in his face now. The strange blend of youth and strain. His skin bore faint marks, implants, now long dead, that once linked him to the station's network. How did you survive? She asked. The interface, he said. It sustained minimal systems. Recycled air. Converted nutrients. Just enough. I wasn't really alive. Just running. You weren't meant to last that long. I wasn't meant to be forgotten. Naley said nothing. He looked at her again, this time with something softer in his eyes. Not trust. But a kind of fragile curiosity. You're not like them. Like who? The ones before. During the war. Soldiers. Zealots. All teeth and no soul. She shook her head. I'm just a historian. With calluses. His gaze flicked to her belt, where a scanner and a worn photograph hung clipped to a carabiner. He tilted his head. Who's that? She followed his eyes, then smiled faintly. My sister, she said. Gone now. She used to explore places like this too. Before she disappeared during a dig on Elner Prime. He studied the photo longer than she expected. Then nodded. People like that shouldn't die. Naley took off her helmet. Her hair clung to her scalp, sweat from tension now drying in the cool air. You're not the only one who lost something, she said. Kale sat down on a broken console. It creaked under his weight. Tell me, he said. What's the world like now? She hesitated. Then said, quieter. Less fire. But still broken. We rebuilt. Changed. But the scars haven't gone. Does anyone remember us? Not enough. He looked down. His hands trembled. Then maybe we lost more than we knew. They sat in silence for a while. She offered him water. He drank slowly, like his body had forgotten how. She told him about her job, about the old world she'd seen, the strange monuments left behind by civilizations who vanished without warning. He listened with the intensity of someone who hadn't heard another voice in decades. I used to believe in the Union, he said at last. We all did. We thought we were saving something. Did you? He looked at her, surprised. She didn't flinch. I don't know, he said after a while. Some days, yes. Others, I think we just didn't want to lose. Sometimes there's no difference. They shared another silence. But it wasn't empty. It was full of grief. Full of understanding. Full of something unnamed. Naley, he said after a while. Can I ask something strange? Sure. Stay. A while longer. She nodded. Okay. Hours passed. The emergency lights dimmed further. She activated a soft beacon from her pack. They sat near it like a campfire. Kale's voice came quieter now. I forgot what company felt like. Me too, she said. He looked at her again. And this time, he saw her. Really saw her. Not as a historian, not as an outsider, not even as a future. As someone real. As someone warm. How long do you have here? I'm scheduled for retrieval tomorrow. 1 rotation. He nodded. Then let me remember what it is to not be alone. Just for 1 day. I can do that. They talked long into the station's false night. They shared stories. Her childhood on the salvaged colony of Dryden, 4. His training in the moons of Elsera. Her first kiss under an artificial aurora. His last love, who never came back from the front line. And as sleep drifted into her bones, she lay against the wall near him. He didn't touch her. But he leaned just close enough for her warmth to reach him. And for the first time in over 200 years. Cale closed his eyes. And rested. The stars above the repair platform sang to themselves in fractured pulses, radio bursts from half-dead satellites, code-choked signals caught in looping frequencies. Taven listened to them like most people listen to lullabies. He sat in the belly of his ship, the Selverin, tuning the receiver by hand. Most engineers trusted autofilters or machine scripts to clean out static. But Taven liked the noise. Liked the rhythm of old things still trying to speak. His cabin was small, cluttered. Parts hung like jewelry from magnetic strips. Half-wired devices blinked inside. Somewhere near the aft module, a coffee synth hissed, flooding the space with bitter aroma. He lived alone. Had for years. Almost got you, he muttered, fingers dancing across the dials. A rogue frequency wavered on the edge of intelligibility. Then. Music. Not just sound. Not data noise. Real music. A lullaby, faint and slow, threaded through digital static like a whisper through snow. Taven's heart jumped. He knew that song. Not just the melody, the exact arrangement. The harmonics. The shift in the final chord. No one else had known it. Not outside of him. And her. Sarah. This can't be real, he whispered, leaning closer. The frequency originated from a decaying beacon drifting in orbit around Murata's fractured moon, just outside salvage jurisdiction. Officially, nothing living or operational had been reported there in decades. And yet. His breath caught. He activated the trace function. Soft green lines curved across the screen, triangulating. The signal pulsed again. Same lullaby. The same voice. Saren Alun, he whispered. Sarah's voice. His hands moved before his mind caught up. Coordinate lock. Destination plotted. Fuel systems rerouted. He was already leaving orbit before fear could tell him not to. The fractured moon loomed like a wound above him. Once called Miravi, it had been a lush mining colony before the war. Now it was little more than scarred rock and shattered towers, hanging in jagged orbit around its parent planet. Most of its atmosphere had burned away during the siege. Only a few interior zones retained sealed pressurization. His ship, the Selverin, docked with a gentle lurch against a rusted satellite tether. No automated defenses. No warning systems. Just that same signal, looping. Taven stepped out into artificial gravity, breath fogging slightly as his suit adjusted to the cold. The beacon was small. Portable. Not military grade. Someone had set it here manually. His eyes scanned the dark. And there she was. Not a ghost. Not a hallucination. A woman stood at the edge of a broken corridor, arms crossed, hair braided in the way only Outer Rim colonists wore. Her jacket bore a faded emblem, Nova Emissary. Pre-collapse diplomatic corps. Her nameplate, Aaron Jail. Not Sarah. But familiar. Hauntingly so. She looked up. You're late, she said, not unkindly. Taven stared. You, how do you have that recording? She tilted her head. It's not a recording. Then what? Come inside. This place isn't built for standing around. The interior had been partially restored, power rerouted, systems reconnected, lights flickering to life with each step. It was a fusion of old architecture and jury-rigged survival. Aaron moved like someone who had lived alone a long time. Efficient. Quiet. Always listening to shadows. You're the first person I've seen in months. Years, she said, offering him warm synth water from a kettle made of salvaged med tubing. Hard to tell time anymore. Why did you send the song? She blinked. Then smiled, sadly. I didn't, she said. The system did. I sing sometimes. To keep my mind real. The station picked it up. Began broadcasting it through the relay. I didn't mean for it to reach anyone. Taven sat heavily. It reached me. She nodded. I guessed that. Only someone who knew the melody would bother coming this far. He studied her face. Her eyes weren't Sarah's. But they held something eerily close. Not exact. Just, resonant. You knew her, he said. Not a question. Aaron sat down across from him. Nodded. Sarah Alun. She was my partner during the final years. Nova Corps intelligence. When things collapsed, she stayed behind to evacuate civilians from the East Quarter. Didn't make it out. I thought she was alone, Taven whispered. No, Aaron said. She wasn't. Not until the end. He leaned back. The air between them thickened. Memories returned like bruises, the day he'd watched the evac transport burn from low orbit. The funeral with no body. The grief that had calcified into silence. She never told me about you. Aaron smiled faintly. She didn't tell me about you either. As the hours passed, they talked. Not about Sarah, at least not only her. About old missions. Abandoned cities. Poetry carved into shuttle walls. The loneliness of loving someone destined for danger. The guilt of surviving them. Taven learned that Aaron had been trapped here during the final siege. Too injured to leave. She'd rerouted systems. Survived by hiding in the substructure. No one ever came back for her. So she stayed. Sang. Talked to old machines. Until they learned to answer. The systems here aren't normal, she said that night, showing him the interface core. They adapted. They've been listening to me for years. Learning. Remembering. He scanned the terminal. The system logs didn't read like normal code. They read like journal entries. Thoughts. Emotions. It copied you, he said. You've imprinted on it. She nodded. Not intentionally. It just happened. And the song. I hummed it. The system remembered. And began singing it back. Like a child learning a lullaby. His blood ran cold. Then, it wasn't you I heard. Not exactly. It was the memory of me. Through the voice of something else. He looked at the terminal again. And suddenly, he understood. The next day, he asked her if she'd come with him. The world out there had changed. Aaron could start again. She didn't have to live among echoes. But she refused. This station is part of me now, she said. Not just physically. Emotionally. It remembers me more clearly than I remember myself. But it's not alive. Are you sure? He stared at her. And realized. She wasn't sure either. Their final night was quiet. They sat near the beacon, watching simulated stars on a broken view screen. She sang again. And this time, he joined her. Their voices didn't match. His was rough. Hers was soft. But somehow, they fit. And as they sang, the system responded, soft tones filling the air around them. Not just playback. Accompaniment. Emotion. Memory. Longing. Love. When Taven left the next morning, he did so with the music still in his ears. He never saw Erin again. But for the rest of his life, whenever he tuned into the stars, he listened for her voice. Or the machine that loved her enough to remember how she sang. The sun above Corvin 7 was a savage thing, burning white and high, casting shadows that cut like blades across the sand. Lyrian kept his eyes down as he moved through the half-buried bones of the dead city, one boot after another kicking up fine dust. His mask hissed with every breath, filtering out the metallic taste of decay that clung to the wind like perfume. He wasn't here for poetry. He was here for salvage. The ruins of Hyendar once stretched across the valley like a web of glass and stone. Now only jagged spires and twisted support beams jutted up from the sand like the ribs of a buried titan. There were whispers that the dome, a pre-collapse atmospheric shield, had fallen during the siege and turned everything inside to fire. And yet, some things survived. He ducked under a cracked archway. Beneath it lay the collapsed remnants of a transit hub, shattered tiles, rusted rails, a single terminal blinking faint green from its cradle of ash. Most of it had been picked clean, but Lyrian had a way of seeing what others missed. A glint of gold between slabs of marble caught his eye. He pried the stone aside. Beneath it, a thin metal hand. He stepped back instinctively, then leaned closer. Not military. Not a labor bot. Sleeker. Designed for diplomacy. Lyrian pulled the debris aside slowly, revealing a full humanoid form, chrome skin dulled by decades, etched plating along the arms and back, slender frame curled in a fetal position. Its face was angled upward, partially shattered, one eye socket hollow. The other still glowed, dim, but alive. "You've got to be kidding," Lyrian muttered. He tapped the console on his wrist, running a diagnostic ping. Model, Veraclass Liaison Construct Status, Dormant Memory Integrity, 64% System Core, Active. He laughed under his breath. "Still breathing, are you?" He didn't know why he spoke aloud. Force of habit. Maybe something more. Carefully, he connected the construct to his own portable stabilizer, a salvager's trick to restart dormant AIs. Sparks danced across her plating. Dust blew away as internal systems rebooted. A voice followed, soft, feminine, mechanical but not cold. "Is this, primary interface?" the construct asked weakly. "Hey," Lyrian said, surprised. "You with me?" Her head turned slightly. Her eye lit brighter. "Unknown user, civilian registry unverified. Name's Lyrian," he said. "Scavenger. Independent. Not corporate. Don't worry." She blinked once. Slow. Human-like. Then said, "I was waiting." "For who?" "Anyone." He brought her back to his camp, little more than a canvas shell and a sand-shielded shuttle, parked beside the collapsed western ridge. The sky had begun to change colors, evening heat giving way to deep purple streaks. He set Vera beside the power node, linking her to a slow charge port. She didn't move much, still stabilizing. But her systems were rebuilding themselves, bit by bit. "You're not a combat unit," he said as he adjusted her internal regulator. "What were you doing in a war zone?" "I was built for pre-conflict diplomatic integration," she replied, her voice stronger now. "Assigned to Hyendar under the Interplanetary Peace Accords." "That was over 200 years ago." "Yes." Lyrian studied her for a moment. She looked peaceful. Not like the other constructs he'd encountered. Those had been pure function. This one was different. She had grace. And something else. Awareness. Do you remember what happened? Only fragments, she said. The day the dome collapsed. I was with my primary contact, Ambassador Shirel. We were meeting with Union officials. Then, the ground shook. Fire. Screaming. And then, I was under rubble. Her voice didn't waver. But her eye dimmed slightly. You're not supposed to remember emotions, he said. I wasn't supposed to be left behind either. Lyrian didn't reply. That night, he couldn't sleep. He sat outside, watching the stars emerge between strands of dust cloud. In the distance, the dome of Hyundar still shimmered faintly, fractured light filtering through broken glass and sand-warped steel. Vera sat beside him. Not moving. Just watching. You don't have to stay quiet, he said eventually. I find silence comforting. He looked over at her. The side of her face still bore the cracks from the collapse. One metal cheek had been dented inward, like someone had tried to crush her before the rubble got to her. I could fix that, he offered. I'm used to the damage. You shouldn't have to be. A pause. Why did you bring me back, she asked. I don't know, Lyrian admitted. Maybe I'm tired of tearing things apart. Maybe I wanted to save something for once. Vera tilted her head. You speak like someone who's lost something. He didn't respond right away. Then, my father was a Union soldier. Stayed behind during the evac. I was 10. We never found his body. Just his badge. Buried under 6 meters of steel. I'm sorry. He shrugged. He made his choice. Did you? Lyrian looked at her. Her eye glowed softly in the dark. And he realized. She wasn't asking about the past. She was asking about now. The days passed quietly. They explored together. She couldn't walk at first, but he helped her. Reinforced her leg joints. Replaced a cracked balance unit. She learned quickly, faster than most. She asked questions. About music. Food. Families. Love. He answered. Not always fully. But enough. And each night, they sat beneath the stars. And he realized he wasn't alone. Not really. On the 7th day, a drone passed overhead. Corporate. He knew what that meant. Scanners. Claim markers. This site had been tagged. Soon, others would come. And when they found Vera, they'd take her apart. Sell her memory core. Dissect her thoughts. We have to go, he told her. She looked at him. But this is my home. Not anymore. Where would we go? Anywhere else. I have a ship. It's not much, but it works. She hesitated. I am afraid. Of what? Not having a purpose. Lyrian took a deep breath. Then stepped closer. And touched her hand. It was cool beneath his fingers. But not lifeless. You don't need one, he said. You can just be. She looked down at their joined hands. And for the first time. She smiled. They left at dawn. As the sun rose behind the broken dome, Vera turned for one last look. What do you see? Lyrian asked. A place where I waited, she said. And someone who came. They entered the shuttle. Together. In the weeks that followed, they moved between worlds. Quiet jobs. Little risks. He taught her to fly. She learned fast. She taught him how to listen, really listen. To memories. To silences. To hearts. And somewhere between the dust and the stars. They fell in love. Not all at once. But slowly. Completely. Unexpectedly. Do you think I'm real? she asked once, as they floated near a quiet nebula. "You're the realest thing in my life," he said. She touched his face then. And he didn't flinch. They never went back to Corvin, 7. But sometimes, at night, when the stars sang their quiet music, Lyrian would hold her hand and whisper, "I would have waited for you too." Zephyrin pressed 2 fingers to the temple interface and let the neural lattice bloom across his vision like ink dissolving into water. The memory stream was warm, tinged in soft gold, and when he stepped through the veil of synaptic code, he found himself standing in an orchard that no longer existed. Not in the real world. Not anywhere but here. And yet, it felt more alive than the city he'd left behind. The trees curved over him like cathedral arches. Fruit hung low, radiant with impossible color. Somewhere beyond the ridge, laughter spilled like music through the leaves. Distant wind chimes rang out with notes he didn't recognize. "This is where she begins," said the technician behind the glass. "Subject entered this memory 3 months ago. Hasn't left since." Zephyrin nodded. His voice was soft. "Who recorded the anchor structure?" "She did. Built it herself. Every tree, every step." Zephyrin took a breath. In the memory field, even breath felt deeper. He stepped forward, his hand brushing against a tree trunk as real as stone, as warm as skin. He was looking for Leora Velan. A woman who hadn't spoken in the real world for 84 days. He found her at the edge of a reflecting pool. She sat barefoot on the grass, her long coat trailing behind her like a comet's tail, her eyes fixed on the water's surface. 1,000 digital fireflies danced through the air, mimicking real-time wind simulations. Zephyrin paused a meter behind her. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. She did first. "You're not from here." He tilted his head. "What gave me away?" "Your thoughts. They're too noisy." He moved to sit beside her. Leora didn't look at him. Her voice was calm, like someone gently walking across an old bridge. "They sent you to pull me out. They asked me to try. You won't succeed." Zephyrin nodded. "I know. Memory architects like Zephyrin weren't therapists. They weren't surgeons either. They were dream crafters, trained to navigate the inner worlds of the grieving, the broken, the unmovable. Most memory loop cases involved war trauma, unresolved loss, or deep neurological isolation. The standard method was always the same: identify the memory source, gently destabilize it, then redirect the subject to recovery scaffolding. But Zephyrin had already seen the orchard. And he already knew. This wasn't about pain. This was about love. And love doesn't like to be redirected. Over the next days, at least, how time passed in here, he stayed. They walked through the orchard. They sat beside streams that didn't exist. She showed him a bench under a lantern tree where she once kissed someone she had lost. She didn't say his name. But Zephyrin saw the shape of him in the way she smiled. Tall. Kind. Brown eyes. Gone. His name was They, she said one day, beneath a stormless sky. He was a civilian. Not military. Not a scientist. Just, someone good. Zephyrin didn't speak. She went on. When the orbital collapse began, he refused to evacuate. He stayed behind to guide children out of the lower levels. I saw the footage later. Right before the power cut out. He turned back once. Toward the camera. I saw him mouth the word, "Wait." Zephyrin closed his eyes. "And you have," he whispered. "Yes," she said. "I built this for him. For me. So I could keep waiting." The more time he spent with her, the less it felt like work. He stopped analyzing her subconscious code markers. He stopped checking in with the technicians. He began to learn her laughter. Her patterns. The pauses between her words. How she always touched the branch of a tree before picking its fruit, as if asking permission. And somewhere, quietly, slowly, he began to fall. Not for her pain. Not for the digital illusion. For her. On the 9th day, she turned to him under the fireglass sky and asked, "Why do you keep coming back?" He didn't lie. "Because I don't want to leave." She looked at him then. Really looked. "You're falling in love with a memory, Zephyrin." "Maybe. But I'm not real." He reached out. His hand brushed hers. It felt warm. "You're real to me." She didn't speak again for a long time. They sat beneath the orchard's great heartwood, its bark glowing faintly with neural gold. And she finally asked. "If I left, would you still remember me?" "Every second." "Would it hurt?" "Yes." "Then you understand." The next morning, when Zephyrin returned to the simulation, she was gone. At first, he thought she'd vanished. Memory collapse. Rejection spike. But then he heard it. A voice, soft and slow, echoing from the far side of the orchard. He followed it. And found a tree he hadn't seen before. A message was carved into the bark. "I wanted to remember what it felt like to be loved one last time. Thank you. Go live." And beneath it, her echo, her last anchor, was singing the song they once taught her in their old apartment. Zephyrin's knees buckled. And for the first time in years, he cried. In the real world, the technicians informed him Leora had disconnected from the loop entirely. She had entered recovery therapy. She had asked not to see visitors. She remembered him. But chose to forget. Zephyrin didn't fight it. Some things aren't meant to stay. Some people are just meant to remind you what love feels like, before they return to their own healing. Months later, he returned to the orchard. Not the original. A recreation. He rebuilt it from memory. Branch by branch. Not perfect. But enough. And he planted a new tree near the heartwood. A fruitless one. Soft leaves. A place for waiting. Not for someone else. But for the version of himself that once learned what it meant to love without expecting to be loved in return.